Let's start with something light, Matt. Your earliest sports memory growing up.
I think it's not necessarily. I mean, I think growing up, I remember growing up here in Stillwater. My dad was a baseball coach at Oklahoma State, and we used to play baseball in the corner at LAP Reynolds. There was this hill where all the kids would gather during the games, and I remember we played ball there for what seemingly was all night. It was probably, looking back, it was probably like 2.5 hours. But maybe college baseball back then it might have been 4.5 hours. But it seemed like all night, and that was just something I look forward to. Going back to probably 2 or 3, 4 years old, where we would go out on that hill and play with football and run around. But that's probably like my earliest athletic sort of memory. I remember some t-ball stuff that, of playing t-ball in Stillwater here. And those are probably my earliest, I would say, athletic memories.
Were those young ages also about the dream of becoming a big leaguer? Was that even entrenched at that age to say, I want to play in the majors?
I would say probably a little older, just because I didn't know quite what that looked like being around I would say my dream was probably more to play at Oklahoma State or play college baseball, because that was what I was exposed to as a little guy. I was obviously knew some of the players, but didn't have the concept probably even of Major League Baseball at a very young age. So I think the dream of being a Major League Baseball player probably started at 7, 8, 9, probably in there, when I started to watch pro baseball and started to watch. I remember watching All-Star games and would go out in the front yard and imitate and go through the lineup. My brother and I would go through the lineup, and one would be American League and one would be National League, and you'd have to imitate each guy's stance and bat left-handed or bat right-handed. My left-handed swing was never any good. Josh ended up being a switch hitter, so maybe that was good for him. But I remember when I would watch All-Star games back then, I would be like, this is what I want to do. I want to play in an All-Star game someday. So that probably happened at, like I said, somewhere between 7 and 10, I would probably say. And then, as you get older, you start to kind of understand what that's going to take a little bit more.
Who was one player's batting stance that stands out from being a kid in the mid-'80s, late '80s?
I used to love Cal Ripken. So I used to, he had probably 150 batting stances. So, you would imitate them all. He had the violin, and he had a different stance seemingly every at bat. So him, I remember I was enamored by Bo Jackson's athletic ability. That was kind of right then in that era where he was running up walls and jumping over fences and, guys like that. But I'd say Cal Ripken was probably my favorite player growing up.
Jackson, do you have an early memory of just playing sports, being around sports? Because obviously you and Ethan grew up with a dad who played in the majors, but what sticks out when you think of like 5-year-old, 6-year-old Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in Colorado and being in the family room and a little bit of like going into the locker room after games. But like going back to Colorado, I kind of got to revisit some of those memories and see all the old videos that pop up of being a little kid and being in the clubhouse. But I remember more of like just being in like the stands, and I told a lot of the people that interview, I remember like all of the MVP chants and stuff like that kind of stick to me, and just kind of funny, like being in LA and hearing them chant like MVP for Shohei kind of brought back like memories for me. And but yeah, I think being in Colorado was probably my earliest memories, and playing like coach pitch and machine pitch in St. Louis. And those are probably my earliest memories.
Remember your first team? Like Little League team?
It was probably like the Hawks. Yeah. And I remember
he was
vaguely in Colorado playing on a team. But that's probably my earliest memory of baseball.
How about you, Ethan?
My earliest, I've been thinking about it since you guys have been answering. In 2011, when they win the World Series and David Freese hit the home run, I was in the family room. I wasn't even out there.
You were how old? 4?
I was probably 4, yeah. And I was jumping on this little couch. There was like this little couch in the corner. And I was like jumping up and down after he hit this home run. And I just remember that so clear. And I was 4 years old. Like, I don't know how like the science works with the humans and they're little, but I mean, I don't feel like 4 years old you should have that like clear memory, but
you have it.
Yeah, I remember that super clear. But yeah, I mean, like Jackson said, like the little stuff, being in the stands, being around the players being around your dad, like that's stuff you remember at a super young age, and just those were incredible times. And baseball's brought some crazy things into our life that we're thankful for. And yeah, but that's a pretty early one for me.
About your first team, Little League team?
Oh man, my first team was probably the Tigers.
Yeah.
The Tigers we played. Jackson put on the older team. I put on the younger team. Jim Edmonds' kid was on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kyle Loesch's kid. But yeah, we had a little bit of a squad. We played for a couple years after that, and it's crazy seeing some of those guys that are now committed to universities, and it's pretty crazy. But yeah, that was my first team. I remember.
Matt, when did you start envisioning yourself as becoming a dad? Like like to sit here with two sons that have, one that has made it to the majors, another one that has those aspirations. Like, at what point, just in general, of becoming a dad, did you start to think about, this is something I want to do? Was that something that was instilled in you even before you met Leslie and were married?
Yeah, I was always excited about having kids. Obviously, when Leslie and I got married, you start to think about the timing of when we want to have kids, and we wanted to have kids pretty young because we felt like we wanted to have a few, and we wanted to be young parents, and we wanted to have them experience, my career to some degree. So yeah, that was always something that I was excited to be a dad, and wanted to be a good dad, and so yeah, we wanted to do it at a young age, and I'm happy that we did it, young.
How intentional were you? Because you were playing. These guys are coming up in the Little League teams and the Tigers and the teams they were on, and yet you were still playing. So what was that like to kind of balance being a present dad, a good dad, a dad who wants his kids to do the best they can, but also you're still playing in the majors, and you have a lot of commitments, and obviously during the season you're everywhere. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where you try to marry the two, right? So I wanted to take them when they were old enough, and even when they really weren't old enough, I would take them early and pitch to them and play with them, and then Leslie would come pick them up. And it obviously took her sacrificing a lot of being willing to drive to the stadium, and come get them, and then drive home, and then come back. And so she sacrificed a lot for me to be able to have them with me. And then once they got old enough to where they could do some things on their own, I could still do my routine. I could still, find time to pitch to them, get them on the field when they could shag without me worrying about them. Then it was just like, they could come with me, and particularly when school would get out, they would just go to the field when I would go at 2, and spend the day with me, and then travel with me some. And then we had a rule, when we were traveling on the road, if it was a 10-day road trip, she would always come to one city. So we would never go more than 6 or 7 days without seeing the family and being together. So that was something that was really important to us. And we all traveled together, and as far as like, we didn't leave for the season and they stayed home at the off. We were always moving around and adjusting to where they went to school and adjusting their teams, and so we made it a priority to stay together and to make sure that they had both parents as present as possible. And I tried to make all their games if I could from a timing standpoint. If there was ever games on Sundays where we were done and they were playing, I would go. Or if we had an off day and they were where I could get to it, I would go. And so just, making it a priority. So I think it's very doable, and I actually enjoyed playing when having them around, and it gives a great perspective when the game gets hard. Just still tons of joy to be had in being around, my kids and the family and teammates.
I'm going backwards a little bit. Jackson, who was your favorite player growing up? Your favorite baseball player?
Oh man, I mean,
did you have one? Did you have a poster on the wall?
Changes for me.
Yeah, give me a couple maybe. Like when you're 12, who am I talking to at 12 years old? Who's Jackson Holliday watching and saying, "That's my favorite guy"?
Oh man, I mean, Tulo. I've always enjoyed watching like infielders. So like Tulo was always awesome for me to watch. Kind of once I got older, I really liked Brandon Crawford and like Corey Seager and Trey Turner. So those are kind of guys that I really like, and kind of left-handed hitting. I mean, Trey Turner isn't, but he can impact the game in different ways as far as being able to steal a base and also changing it with one swing. So just I'm more in like the modern kind of era, but I'm a big Corey Seager fan, and Lindor, and just any shortstop that's able to kind of do a little bit of everything is my type.
Piggybacking off that, did you have a moment this year where you were like looking over and you're like, that's the guy that when I was 12, like Corey Seager or something that?
I had a lot of those moments. I know in spring training, I like hit a double to lead off the game or something, and Trey Turner was like, nice swing. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty sick.
That's
and
Trey
then,
Turner. Yeah.
Yeah, I like played in LA and like turned double play and Mookie Betts, and I'm like, this is wild. Like, guys, Mike Trout hitting a homer. I told you guys that earlier, and
Yeah.
just like getting to play against guys that I've been watching, because I mean, he didn't finish playing too long ago, so these guys were still in the big leagues and still all stars, and so like it's kind of wild, just playing and competing against guys that I still grew up watching. You know,
Ethan, who are you guys? Like 10-year-old Ethan, who's he watching? Who's he sitting on YouTube and watching highlights of all the time?
I had a lot of favorites. I feel like when my dad got to play with Judge, I was like a huge Judge fan, and I still am.
That was a good year to.
Yeah, I mean, that was like
that was his rookie year, right?
That was his like real official rookie year. But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, Arenado I was always a huge Arenado fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like the coolest. The way he plays defense, the way he kind of has like brings the fire to the game. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Seager now, I'd say Seager and Gunnar. I mean, obviously they're not included, but Seager and Gunnar Henderson are probably my two favorites right now. But like, I don't know, when I was younger, I kind of just liked everybody. Like, I just loved watching baseball. Every team that would come play the Cardinals, I was freaking out like, oh yeah, he's on that team. Like, oh yeah, I get to watch him. But I don't know. I wouldn't say I had like a specific like favorite when I was younger. I kind of just was a huge fan of the game and still am. But
good.
Yeah, I liked everybody. I thought everyone was so cool.
Matt, when you were becoming a dad, Jackson's born, Ethan's born. Tell me about the conversations or the intentionality that you and Leslie had in wanting to raise them to know who Christ was.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that our perspective has always been, I mean, it's the most important, thing. I don't even want to call it a thing. I mean, it's just the most important part of their life, our life. Like, I want to spend eternity with my kids. And I want them to understand true value, true life, real life. What does life actually look like and feel like from a satisfied in Jesus type of perspective? So, I mean, that was always like number one by a mile. I mean, just, and sometimes getting them to, being in a family in the baseball, like, okay, it's hard to go to church on Sundays during the seasons. And so sometimes, from a traditional standpoint of making sure they're in church was so difficult. But I think that, they say, we tried to model, what it looks like to love others and to love Jesus and love others and hope that more is, caught than taught, they say. So, I think that was always sort of our method of, hey, obviously we want to expose them to the Bible, but we also want to expose them to treating people and creating community and having people over your home and welcoming them in and loving others. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that there's anything, if you're a Christian, that there's anything more important to you than your kids spending eternity with Jesus. And
yeah,
I think that's, number one by a mile, like I said.
How did you, Ethan, I'll go to you first. Like, growing up, sports is a big part of the journey, but talk about like identity. We talk about that word a lot at Sports Spectrum. We talk about that word a lot at PAO. We talk about that word a lot just in our faith. What's that been like for you on your journey at 17? It's going to be 18 soon.
Yeah. In
keeping that identity firm in Christ as opposed to your identity as a baseball player or as just a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've started to get to know the Lord in a personal way. Growing up, you're a kid. Like, obviously, Jesus was number one. My parents, I was so fortunate to have parents that always spoke that on our lives, and it was always Jesus, and that was the number one part of our life. But as I've gotten older, as I've gotten to grow a firm relationship with Christ, it showed me really where my identity is. And playing the great game of baseball, there's times where it gets tough, and there's times where you're, as a young person who's never really experienced these new feelings, you go through trials, you go through stuff that are hard in the moment. And I feel like in the last three or so years, I've gotten to find where my identity really is. I mean, so many people can get caught up in the game, getting caught up in life, losing their identity in sports or things that are worldly. And when I truly found where my identity was in Christ, and that's where I'm centered, that's who I am. My life has been it's been incredible, and that's a peace you can't explain. That's a confidence. That's a way of life that you wish everyone can have. And navigating through sports and life, if I didn't have Christ as my center, I don't know how I could ever do it. And I feel like that's the mission as a Christian man, to spread the word of Jesus so people can have that peace, that purpose, that feeling that you can't explain. And yeah, I mean it's incredible, and that's I'm so thankful to have parents and support and people to just bring me closer to the Lord. And yeah, I mean my identity is 100% no doubt rooted through Christ, and baseball is just it's something I do, and I happen to be pretty good at it.
Hmm.
But I mean my identity is in Christ, and there's nothing that's going to take that away. And whatever happens in my baseball career, I really it's not going to affect me, and that's a peace. That's something you can have in your everyday training, your ups and downs. When you have that center, you feel unstoppable. So that's just, I mean, that's my favorite thing about life. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful, and yeah. So
Matt, what do you think when you hear that?
It's amazing. It's every parent's dream. I mean, like I said, I think that if there's, I mean, we love baseball. Look, I think that God has given us a love for baseball and an ability to play it and a platform to use it. And so I don't want to diminish, like, we love baseball. We want to be the best at it. I want them to work hard and practice it. But I also think that, like, this is a great opportunity for them to share the gospel and the good news. And God has given us this ability in a way for them to take baseball, and with Jesus, they can have impact. And I think that's on purpose. And it's a great vessel for sharing the good news. And so, like I said, I think that's every parent's dream, is to have kids that, one, love Jesus, two, follow their passion, and mix the two together.
All right, Jackson and Ethan. So we had your dad on a month ago at PAO with Matt Forte, Sports Spectrum podcast. It's going to come out soon. And he relived the day you got called to the big leagues. But I want you two to kind of play off each other. And Matt, you can jump into wherever you need to on that day and what it was like. So I'll start with Jackson. So you're in AAA. Take me to walking in and getting that call.
Yeah, so we just finished the game playing Scranton, and I had a pretty good game. I think I lined out my first at bat and maybe had a single or a double. And I've been playing pretty well, and I thought I was doing everything I could to get called up. And then one of our assistant coaches comes in, and he's like, "Buck wants to see you in his office, like all serious." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not that kind of player or kid, so I know I'm not in trouble." So I kind of...
Did you have an inkling? You had to have.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't do anything. So I go in there, and he calls me in there, and you've been doing great. I appreciate how you've been handling yourself. And I know your dad left you a lot of tickets, and you're gonna have to leave him some tomorrow. So it was a cool moment, and been able to call Chloe. He's like, "Go call your family," and call Chloe, then called them, and just being able to share that with them was pretty special. And called E, and yeah, just to be able to tell your family that you got called up to the big leagues and something that you've been working for your whole life is something that I'll never forget. It was a pretty crazy day. Me and Chloe had to pack up an apartment.
Yep.
After the game, so it probably started at 6:30. So we're packing the apartment at like 10:30, 11, and having to drive to Richmond, which is an hour away, and ended up having to catch like a 6 a.m. flight. So we're up at 4:30 and fly to Boston and get in. I don't remember what time, like 9 o'clock, and then I took a nap until I had to get on the bus. So it was a crazy 24 hours for sure. But to get to debut in Fenway Park and have my family there, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better moment. Wish I would have got a hit that night. I'm pretty sure I won. So
we'll fill in some gaps here. First of all, your dad told us that when you called, you were just kind of nonchalant. So I'm going to the show.
Yeah.
Is that just kind of your personality?
That's not my personality to like make a giant deal out of it. I'm like, hey, I just got called up to the big leagues. You guys are going to have to figure out how to get to Boston. So that's kind of how it went for me. Who knows? Maybe Ethan's story will be a little bit different than mine. But,
well, we're definitely going to fill in the gaps with your dad's version of the story from the previous interview. But Ethan, like, tell me, remind me of that experience getting the call from your bro, and then you play-by-play as your dad's trying to figure out how the heck you're going to get to Boston.
So I had a high school baseball game that night. We won. The vibes were up. I checked Jackson's box score. He had 2 or 3 hits, and I was like, all right, he's playing good. He was killing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we sit down. I think we already ordered chips, drinks, whatever. We're just hanging out. Everyone's having a good time. And I get a call from Jackson, and I was like, oh, he wouldn't call me right after a game. Like that's not like him. He's on a road trip. Like,
nope.
You weren't on a road trip? Oh, well, whatever. He usually didn't call me straight after a game. And he calls me, and he's like, hey, I got called up. And I was like, huh? I was like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know if you're good, I guess.
Good story, you know?
And so he's like, yeah, I got called up. And I was freaking out. I was like, no way. Like, where you going to Boston? Like what's the deal here? And no, I mean, it was crazy. Like, that was a crazy feeling. Like, I got goosebumps, and it was just like kind of trying to process that. Eating dinner with all the boys after a game was kind of crazy. And then I called my dad, and they're all pumped, but like he was like, hey, like we don't know how we're gonna get to Boston. Like this is bad. Like we're gonna figure something out. I was like, all right, man. Like, I don't know.
Is that what it was, Matt?
I don't remember that. But.
No, that's exactly how it was. They were freaking out. My mom was kind of freaking out. My dad was just he was just, oh, I'll be fine. And I was like, I don't know how we're gonna do it. I don't know. We're not gonna make it. I was like,
so take me to the next morning, or even late that night.
Yeah, it's like I get home, and they're like, we're trying to figure out something with a plane out of Stillwater. And so I didn't know that the plane was going to Boston already. So they were like, yeah, there's a plane store that might be able to take us. And then we figured out that the plane was going to Boston originally. And we woke up at like 4 a.m., got on a flight at 5:30 or whatever, and got to Boston in the morning. And it was like the craziest, like, I mean, the Lord had it perfectly planned. I don't know how there was a flight from Stillwater, Oklahoma to Boston. I mean, if it was later, I mean, it was just like the craziest thing, but we made it and got to watch Jackson hit BP on the field and then watch that game. It was an incredible feeling, an incredible moment as a brother. And I'm sure my dad was having great feelings as a dad, and the whole family, everyone was just pumped. And we were just proud of Jackson, get to watch him play Major League Baseball against the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park is like, you can't really match it up any better. But no, it was an incredible 24 hours, and it was definitely an experience.
Even the tickets, right, Matt? I'm trying to remember when you told the story, like where you guys sat, you were like front row.
Kevin Millar, yeah.
Kevin Millar got the tickets.
Yeah, we were almost like too close.
It was almost awkward. It was
a lot. I was like. I'm always kind of like the field guy, and I was like, I don't know about this guy. I was like, I'm gonna go see my mom. Like, I don't, because I mean, we were probably 10 feet away from Jackson if he was sitting on the edge of the dugout. Like it was a little close.
So you guys strike me as like pretty mellow too. You're not like openly yelling loudly, "Come on, Jackson, you got this." No. You're just kind of chilling, right? You're not saying a whole lot, Matt.
Yeah, trying to lay low. Yeah. It was we were obnoxiously close to the dugout
because you could have said something.
But at some point, I mean, you know, when somebody does something nice for you and they give you really great tickets, you can't be like, "Sorry, Kevin, those are too good of tickets," you know. So, the next night I was like, "Hey, we need to move."
And then it poured the next night. It was terrible.
Further over. So it was great. It was.
We were able to catch up after. Your first game, get pictures, get hugged. And so that must have been awesome to see your family, Jackson, and describe like the fact of what they went through even just to get there.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And trying to explain it to me, I'm like, man, that can write up a better scenario for you guys. So it was pretty awesome. We had a bunch of people there, some people from Boris and some family friends, and yeah, it was really cool to be able to see everyone out on the field after the game and take pictures and kind of celebrate that moment.
Favorite memory, Jackson, of 2024 as a baseball player, outside of your debut?
I think my first home run was probably one of the cooler things that I've gotten to experience.
Is that the Grand Slam?
Yeah, in baseball. Just kind of the whole moment together, getting sent down, getting called back up, and then kind of in the first game of not being able to get a first hit for a while, and then being able to hit my first home run and my first game back. I mean, that was a pretty special moment.
And the noise, the crowd.
Yeah,
I've watched that a few times.
The whole thing together was pretty special. I just like to watch like the reaction of fans and teammates, and I think that's the coolest part. And but yeah, it was a pretty special moment.
Describe your excitement for Ethan Holliday in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more excited. Hopefully, I'm at the All-Star game playing in Atlanta, but at the same time, if I'm not, then I'll be right here sitting on that couch in the family room or in the living room waiting for the draft. So I'm excited. Put himself in a pretty awesome position, and yeah, really looking forward to what the Lord has in store for Big E.
Biggest piece of advice you'd give him to potentially be able to follow in your footsteps and be drafted really high?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has anything to worry about. I think he put himself in a really good position. I mean, when you play really well in travel ball and through high school to get to this moment, this is the final step before you get to go and play professional baseball, and just to have fun in high school, have fun with your buddies, and just enjoy it, and just because it's just a game and it's fun, and just enjoy these last, I guess, season of high school baseball where you get to use a metal bat and crush homers. So
what do you wish that you had paid attention to a little bit more when he was being drafted high, that you look back now and you're like, man, I wish I'd focused on that as you prepare for your 2025?
I think I could have paid attention a little bit more how he kind of went about it during games. Obviously I remember it pretty clear, but I mean, I was also trying to play my game as well, and I was trying to show out in front of all the people. But just the way he kind of prepared himself, I do remember him being really locked in. I'm a little different. I'm a little more like mess around with the guys in the back of the bus, play some music, play cards, whatever. But I don't know. I mean, that experience was so incredible. Seeing him work his way from late first round or really whatever people said before the spring, and then the way he worked in the off season was incredible, and then to kind of show it in the spring was incredible, and to be right next to him, kind of his wingman through that whole process was pretty insane. That was like one of the cooler things I've ever been able to watch in a baseball field, just the way he dominated. But I don't know, I got to take so many amazing things from that experience that he went through, but I don't know. I wish I could get it back sometimes, just because it was so unique, so special to be out there with your brother, and hopefully one day we can play again together. So yeah.
Last one for you, Matt Holliday. What's your prayer for Jackson and Ethan in 2025?
Probably what it is all the time. I think just, baseball's hard, and my prayer is that they wouldn't listen to any outside noise. That they could just really do play for an audience of one and really enjoy the game of baseball. And as much social media as there is now, and as much opinion that's out there, and everybody has an opinion, I think my prayer for them is to be able to really just stay locked into baseball and their teammates and relationships, and not worry about all the outside noise. And that can be difficult. I mean, in today's day and age, people are on social media all the time, and to really be able to block that out is a discipline that's very difficult. And so that would be my prayer for them, that they could actually not let any of the outside noise, good or bad, affect who they are as people. And that I don't know. I think that's probably my personal.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.